Hi everyone, Teddy Baldassarre with TeddyBaldassarre.com. In this video, we're looking at a brand new model from Tissot with the Le Locle collection, with this one coming in this midnight blue dial. So in this video and on this channel, we cover watches available for purchase on our website, TeddyBaldassarre.com, as an authorized dealer. So in this video, deep dive on this timepiece, final points of consideration at the end, but also throughout this video, if you have further questions, check out the link in the description down below to the product page where you can learn more and purchase the watch. But guys, let's jump into the video, take a closer look at this watch. Now, Tissot has been one of the largest producers of Swiss mechanical watches for many years. But over the past couple of years, they've ascended impressively in the hearts and minds of watch enthusiasts in the community in particular. With the Gentleman Powermatic 80 that debuted back in 2020, followed by the incredibly popular PRX the following year, Tissot is certainly hitting its stride and offering up some of the better watches for under $1,000 on the entire market. We recently did see some more PRX models be introduced in 2022, but in a recent interview with Tissot CEO Sylvain Dalla, I was asking him about what are the pillars of the Tissot line, and I was quick to say, oh, it must be the C-Star, it must be models like the PRX and the Gentleman, but he was quick to mention that actually the Le Locle is going to be one of the pillars of the brand and one of their best-selling models across the globe. Named for the town in Switzerland that Tissot has called home since its inception in 1853, and today we'll focus on the Le Locle Powermatic 80, a more refined design from the brand that balances meaningful mass market appeal with plenty to appreciate from the enthusiast perspective as well. Now, starting with a conversation on the case here, we have a 39.3 millimeter diameter paired with a lug to lug distance of 48.2 millimeters and a thickness of 10 millimeters. Now, this falls in a nice range of wearability for a variety of people out there, especially considering the modern wearability concerns of many dress watches out there. This is going to wear on the wrist, very similar to a 40 millimeter case. You do have a thin bezel, so this is going to add more to the presence of that dial with that dial to bezel ratio. The lug to lug, although is going to be rather broad for a watch of 39 millimeters, it does have these lugs that are going to cascade down towards the wrist and help guide that bracelet to not add any additional length to the top to bottom wear of the watch itself. With 10 millimeters of thickness here, should have no concerns when it comes to sliding underneath different dress cuffs, and with this blue dial, it is going to marry that nice middle ground of some casual upside in the process. Now, on the case itself, it is going to be predominantly polished on the front-facing surfaces, including the bracelet, and then on the side, you'll have a nice vertical brushing pattern that adds to the elevated look and feel and offering up some different patterns and reflective surfaces as you move the watch underneath the light. The crown is positioned at the 3 o'clock and is going to be signed with the Tissot T. Set between 19 millimeter lugs, the Le Locle is equipped with a 7-link bracelet that lies somewhere between the world of Jubilee bracelets and a beads of rice, tapering from the lugs to a 16 millimeter ensign hidden dual deployant butterfly style clasp. The inner components of the clasp are milled, polished, and well executed for the price point. And while there are no points of micro adjustment in this design, the watch does come with 2 half links to chase that elusive perfect fit. And in general, I would say the bracelet is well done for this price category of $600. And if you know Tissot and what they've been able to deliver with their bracelets from the likes of the PRX, no surprise that they're doing a nice job here. Now, flipping this watch over, I do want to talk about this and take this into consideration when it comes to the snap-on 2-part case back with that exhibition crystal set beneath a skeletonized top layer in engraved stainless steel. Now, why I bring this up is because you can kind of feel this multi-dimensionality of the back on your wrist. Now, this is not a problem for me, but I could imagine some having potentially a gripe with this when they had this strapped on. Now, with the help of the push-pull crown of 7 millimeters, so a large crown here, easy to get your hands on, that case back as well as the sapphire crystal here, you're getting 30 meters of water resistance, not going to really exceed anybody's expectations, but given the dress watch appeal here, I don't think there's that much reason to complain. So now let's move over to the dial, and this is probably my favorite aspect of this watch in allowing it to separate from some of the competition. Now, with balancing all these different textures and I would say a high level of finish for the price range in this deep navy blue color, it's really nice to see all of this come together. It has a combination of traditional elements with some contemporary flair, but really leaning into more classic watchmaking. For one, a guilloche style textured dial surface is at the center, achieved by the way of a simpler pressing process, but it still looks the part. And then at the minute track on the outside, you will also see that same guilloche pattern. The dial is further demarcated by a smooth ring that acts as a home for the applied Roman numeral indices, which are themselves highly polished and are oriented around the center. At 3, a black on white date disc is going to easily be viewed through a simply faceted aperture to add a touch of daily utility and set among the textured central dial surface. We have an oversized Tissot 1853 signature at noon, as well as the model's name in cursive and Powermatic 80, all positioned at 6, with all of the silver printing being executed on a flat area. Polished steel leaf style hands manage the time telling duties with the slender white sweep second hand. Overall, this is a well done dial. I like the multifaceted types of textured surfaces. For around $600, this is an entrancing looking piece. Maybe leaning too far into the traditional side of things when it comes to dials and their approaches, but for those that want that conventional dress watch look and also pairing it with a pop of color with the blue here that is this vivid midnight blue backdrop, I think this is where this watch comes to life. So now looking back over to that exhibition or partially exhibition case back, you will then find underneath that the reliable Powermatic 80.111, complete with a custom solid Tissot signed rotor. Now finishing elsewhere on the movement is straightforward and utilitarian, as a standard matte finish can be found on the bridges and plates, as Tissot has opted to go with the base variant of the Powermatic 80 family. But this is falling in a price range at that entry-level position for that Powermatic family of movements. If you're not familiar with these Powermatic 80 movements, this is where they take these ETA 2824s, modify them to reduce the beat frequency of 3 Hz or 21,600 vibrations per hour in order to utilize the same energy from the mainspring to achieve a longer running performance of 80 hours for that reserve. There's also some modifications to the gear train here as well, and then also making some adjustments to the balance assembly, removing the traditional regulator pin setup instead for a free-sprung-like architecture. Now, in terms of general operation here, again, 21,600 vibrations per hour, 3 Hertz. It does feature hacking and hand winding. Hacking stop in the second hand when you pull the crown to the farthest position. And I think the number one thing here going for these watches is that power reserve of 80 hours. In terms of general accuracy, we do test out all the examples that we tried to review here, just to provide some anecdotal evidence. This one was running between -3 to +5 seconds per day when testing across 5 different positions. So really good performance out of the box here. So now to unpack looking at this Tissot Le Locle, and let's talk about some of the general points of consideration, mostly on maybe more of the negative side, and then we'll look at the positives because there's certainly, I think, some things to think about on both ends. Now, speaking to what I would say about the Le Locle, there's a reason why it was probably overlooked by myself, and I think that's just given that it's falling into a line of watches that is going to appeal to more traditional levels of watchmaking with the guilloche pattern, dress watch characteristics. When you appeal to this and then also have models like the PRX, the Gentleman, the C-Star, I think many collectors are just going to lean more towards those sports elements of those watches and maximizing that to all their scenarios rather than leaning into something that's going to lean dressy. So I think that's the number one challenge when it comes to this watch. Also, when dealing with the watch from a wearability perspective, I think it's very good. Some people might have an issue with that case back and just how it feels on the wrist. Again, not an issue for me, but I can see some people might prefer a solid case back or a traditional exhibition case back, not having these multifaceted types of finishing on the surfaces there. Now talking about the pros of this watch, I think when you look across the board, it's what Tissot does very often, and that's just creating no-nonsense, well-positioned, Swiss-made watches for the price, and that's exactly what this watch is. For around $600, I think this is one of the better options for a dress watch out there. Good dimension set, just being over 39 millimeters, going to wear true to a 40 millimeter case. Finishing is very solid, both on the case itself, the bracelet, but primarily that dial does add some nice just flair here. And then you have that 80-hour power reserve Swiss Powermatic 80 movement, which is occupying itself within many of Tissot's offerings and going to provide a nice set it and forget it type of wearing experience, being one of those entry-level position watches to get into this Powermatic 80 family. And then also speaking to this blue dial version, I think this is my favorite so far from this traditional Le Locle setup.
it's a good middle ground between the traditional approach that these watches obviously take, and then also bringing in some different types of upside with casual wear that I think Blue provides compared to the silver and other options from this collection. So simply put, if you're looking for a $600 dress watch, Swiss watchmaking perspective, the Le Locle is hard to beat. And with the Blue dial, it offers that casual upside that I think many people are looking for nowadays in the watch market.
All right, guys, well, thank you again so much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. That does help out the channel. But also, if you're in the market for the watch presented in this video, it is available on Baldassarre.com. We're a full authorized dealer of over 30 brands, quick and fast fulfillment, dedicated customer support, and a full factory warranty for all the new products that we offer. But guys, thank you again so much for watching. Be well, and I will see you all next time.